Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. Look where we are, back in the Phoenix pub. How are we with our Starbucks coffees? Very American of us.
I think it's just very telling of our age now. I had a look at the Sunday Vibes playlist. We're on episode 270 something.
Ooh.
Jesus. From 0 to 100, it was beers, and then Van Straat had a little mini era where it's can I get a gin? And now it's coffees because we're all haggard.
Drink a beer.
Yeah. But, I mean, we've gone, other brands are available, by the way, other than just Starbucks, aren't there? And if you are a coffee brand that wants to sponsor the show, then get in touch with us.
That actually would be great.
How have you been?
I've been fine. My headache's gone now that I've had that, and I've been out of the electric car for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm all good, man. I'm ready for us to kick this off.
It's nice to be back in person together, isn't it?
It actually is.
Lovely.
Rather than being online.
It's not enjoyable at all when we shoot online.
I mean, let's not go that far. It's relatively enjoyable.
It's awful. I hate every second of it.
I still enjoy it, but in person it's just so much better. So we will try and bring you as much in-person Sunday vibes as possible. But over the last few weeks, we've a couple of
riddled.
COVID.
Absolutely
COVID.
riddled, mate.
You've been COVID clean, but
COVID
you're
clean.
riddled anyway.
Thank
So let's go on with today's topic, which is us predicting some of Europe's biggest clubs' biggest transfers.
Woof.
Now, to clarify this, we're going to be looking at the top 5 divisions in Europe, aren't we? And the top 3 sides we've picked from each of those divisions. That's based on today's league table.
Yeah, we've been a bit Premier League centric in recent episodes, so we're trying to branch out a bit.
Exactly. And, some of the league tables might change in the future, but as of today, this is how the teams sit, okay? Because there are some bloody big names available, especially on free transfers. Just looking at this list here, I mean, Mbappe, Pogba, Dybala, Kessier's now kind of gone to Barca. Rudiger's kind of gone to Madrid. Christensen's kind of gone to Barca. But Dembele still hasn't signed up. So there's plenty to discuss here. We will start in the Premier League. I know we said we've been a bit too Premier League centric. But whatever. We'll talk about the rest of Europe in a bit. And we'll start at the top, shall we? Manchester City.
Well, the way I thought we could approach this was predicting what that club is going to do and then assessing it, so agreeing or disagreeing with it, and then saying what we would do. Because they are two totally different things, right? Predicting what Man United are going to do. Exactly.
We're not
it's
talking
totally
about
different
United,
from what we would do with Man United.
No, we're talking about the top club.
Yeah, we're not talking about
Big
that
clubs.
nonsense. All right, relax. Let's do Man City then, because this is an easy prediction, isn't it? I mean, it seems like that Haaland deal is wrapped up. Very expensive. I know that it's only a £63 million buyout clause, but rumoured of £500,000 a week wages, matching the highest earner, huge agents fees, huge fees going to his father as well, by the sounds of it. As of yet unconfirmed, but Pat, I want your opinion. Early doors, Haaland to City. Happen?
I wrote a script on this, and I think that this makes perfect sense. I have questions about it, but they're not questions about the wisdom of doing the deal, because he's going to go for way below market rate.
Yeah.
And everything that Haaland's good at is stuff that City can enhance. So he's already a really good outlet, great at receiving progressive passes, great at getting touches in the box. And he's playing for a Dortmund side, which, let's face it, are not an elite Dortmund side.
No.
There's a lot to recommend them, and they're going to be good next season. They made some great signings already. But I don't know, this is not Tuchel's Dortmund or Klopp's Dortmund.
It's not.
So you imagine him going to City, and City, what they're amazing at is finding you in the final third. They're always going to find you there. And having somebody in the box who combines high shot volume with proximity to goal, I think is really important.
Yeah.
There are 3 players in the squad who get over 3 shots a game. De Bruyne, Mahrez and Jesus. And the only one of those who takes those shots from on average inside the box is Jesus. And he may well go. Now, I personally would probably try and keep him. But I think that just having a guy there who is able to get off a load of attempts, the fact that he's very two-footed, the fact that he's an aerial presence as well, I think that this will really enhance their weaponry, because City actually put in the most crosses of any team in the league, but generate fewer chances from crosses than Liverpool, Brighton. They're about level with Everton and Man United for chances generated from crosses. So, look, I don't just want to be like, he's tall, they're going to score headers, but it does give them something different, because they're quite a small side. But in a way, I kind of feel like Haaland...
And they're cutback merchants as well. They get to the byline an awful lot, City, don't they?
Yeah, and actually, the interesting thing this year, they're still an elite attacking team, but this will be the first season of Pep's career where they don't have the best attack in the league either by goals scored or by XG. Liverpool are ahead of them right now.
2 goals ahead in the league, and I think 4 by
It's
XG.
tight still. It's tight still.
And so it could end up the other way
change,
around.
yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you look at it and you think, normally they're like far and away the best. So there is an edge to be gained here. On the other hand, there's a part of me that thinks the attack is always going to be fine under Pep. And I almost think that what's more important for City is maybe what they do at left back and how they strengthen in the centre of the park. Those moves, I think, are just as important and maybe more important to the future of the side than Haaland, because I feel like they're always going to be able to score goals. They've already got Jesus. They could re-up him. They've got Alvarez arriving as well. That's really strange for the top scorer on this side to have like 11 goals. Yeah. But I think that... with Haaland, though, I still think they're going to have to share around the goals, because what I worry about with him is fitness.
Yeah.
Like, he missed 20% of minutes last year. He's missed like 40% of minutes this year. And what I was kind of talking about in this script is that when you've got somebody as big as him and as fast as him, they're right at the edge of what's physically possible. And that really increases the chance of like a catastrophic breakdown body-wise. When we look at other sports, and in fact, when we look at football, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo always talked about like losing weight as he got older to maintain mobility. In basketball, you saw people like LeBron take up a special diet to lose some weight because they knew otherwise they'd get injured a lot. So I do worry that Haaland might be one of those guys who kind of, he maybe starts 20 games a season, 25 games a season, has a couple of years where he's not playing that much just because of injuries. Yeah. So that's the question. How fit can they keep?
What do we think about, you know, the arguments that are very clearly levelled at, that I don't agree with, by neutrals are, he doesn't fit the system, he doesn't play with his back to goal, and he wants clear room to run in behind, and we've seen him at his best in Champions League moments where he's got a lot of green field to get in behind the defence, and also the kind of arguments that, you know, it is a risk because of the fee and because of the, well, not because of the fee, but because of the wages and everything else involved that makes it a huge fee. It feels to me like people like have a real discredit for Pep's ability to get the best out of strikers and penalty box strikers. Like, have people just forgotten how good Aguero was?
Or Lewandowski.
Guardiola or Lewandowski at Bayern Munich. I see so many times on Twitter people being like, doesn't fit the style of play.
It's the Zlatan thing they go back to, right?
Yeah,
at Barca.
As if like Pep isn't one of the most adaptable managers in world football and able to create multiple positive systems. Like, the best teams in history have continued to improve and adapt even when they're at their very pinnacle. And this is just another example of Pep doing that. Like, if he could get... I know that Aguero, I think his top goals in the Premier League under Pep was only 20, so I don't think he put up massive actual goals, but majority of that was because he was injured. Like every other week.
And if he had a 20-goal striker this season, probably secures in the league.
Exactly. So. And prior to last season, I think it was Lewandowski's best goal-to-game ratio of any time in his career working under Pep Guardiola. So I think the narrative that he can't play in this system because Pep doesn't play back-to-goal strikers in the penalty box is just an absolute nonsense. I mean, it's just totally discrediting one of the best managers ever.
There's a few things to unpack there, isn't there? The fact he's only been available for, well, he's missed 42% of minutes, you said, this season. I still think if he's available for 60% of the minutes in this Manchester City side, like, he does enough damage in that period for it to be worth the investment. Yeah. But still, he's not going to be involved in intricate build-up. A lot of his good creativity, like his assists, have come in the counter-attack. But like you said, Pep... I imagine he'll be able to fine-tune his system to get the best out of him. Like, it's silly to suggest otherwise.
It frustrates me when people that just don't give Pep the credit for that. For like, they seem to think he's like stuck to this really rigid philosophy of how he's going to play. He's played multiple different systems for City this year. He's played multiple different systems throughout his time as a coach, going from Barcelona to Bayern to City now. That's involved a striker, not a striker, inverted wingers, like fullbacks overlapping, fullbacks playing in midfield. So, like, put some respect on the man's name. He's going to find a way of getting the best out of Erling Haaland. Right, let's talk about Liverpool then, because they are obviously second in the Premier League as things stand. Prediction, Aurelien Tchouameni, heavily linked by the French press. Of course, a number of teams are interested in him, it seems like. Real Madrid want him, PSG very interested, Manchester United supposedly extremely interested. But at, 60 million quid... I mean, that seems like some signing for Liverpool if they get that over the line.
I mean, he's got a pretty unique skill set, hasn't he? In the fact that he puts up an elite amount of defensive actions per 90, which is around 6.3. Yeah. He's also great on the ball, like a great progressor, great carrier of the ball, good eye for a pass, and he gets over 1.5 shots away, which is pretty rare for a deep-lying midfielder who puts up those sort of numbers on the defensive end. So yeah, he's got a very desirable skill set, which means his price is pretty punchy.
I don't think it's that punchy. I actually don't think it's that punchy. 58, 60 million quid for a 22-year-old playing at this level and already a French international.
Yeah. I think if other clubs allow this to, I think other clubs need him more so than Liverpool, like a Manchester United or a Chelsea. And if they allow this to happen, then they will have egg on their face as he comes to prominence in the next 2 or 3 years.
What did they spend on Naby Keita? It's in that region, wasn't it? About 58 million pounds. And I don't think anybody would look at this deal and go, what, they spent that on Naby Keita, how are they spending this much on Tchouameni? I think it's like, that's very good value. And in a market where I can't necessarily see Madrid putting up 60 million quid for him, I don't think Chelsea are going to be able to because of the obvious bans behind the scenes and the sanction of Roman Abramovich. Juventus, I don't think are going to be able to put out that money. So if it comes down to United versus Liverpool, it's a one-team decision that you pick Liverpool 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think Liverpool will probably find themselves in the driver's seat for him. But just to allude to what I was saying before, like he's great. You get him if the opportunity is there. But I still think they could get away with not signing a player like Tchouameni and be fine in midfield for next season. Obviously, it looks like they're going to sign Fabio Carvalho as well, which I think is an outstanding transfer for like 7.5 mil from Fulham.
Were you interviewed him? What was he like?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy, and he absolutely crushed it in the Championship this campaign, and looks very much in like not the Harvey Elliott mould necessarily, although they're, I think, expected goals and assists pretty much identical when you look at his spell at Fulham, Harvey Elliott's spell at Blackburn, which fares pretty well for the kid. But he's a number 10, can play wide, so a healthy reinforcement there in those sort of areas. But they've got like guys who put up tremendous defensive numbers already in the form of Fabinho. Thiago Alcantara does an underrated amount of defensive work. Jordan Henderson's not like the defensive unit he used to be, but obviously still very good at ferrying the ball up and down the pitch, passing incisively. So if Tchouameni comes, as strange as it sounds, like he could be great for them in a year, 18 months' time. I don't necessarily think they need him immediately, but still, like a scary prospect. Tchouameni in their ranks with the personnel they've got.
And you also just back, if Tchouameni goes to Liverpool, you back him to perform like straight away almost. Whereas if he came to a club like Manchester United, I could already see it just being like a disaster and like everything going wrong for him. So
because you forget about Keita, you forget about Ox. Who else have they got in midfield? I mean, Milner's contract's coming to an end this season.
Yeah, but Keita and Ox are both out of contract next season.
Yeah, and so they might re-up Milner. I think they're in discussions to give him another year contract extension.
But I think you've got to be realistic about what you're going to get out of him. I think that's partially he's good around the club kind of move, and maybe we can play him in the cups because this season he's looked off the pace. Henderson has looked off the pace, and they're in a situation where they're kind of like having to split decisions based on kind of what they need in a particular game. Like, oh, we need more of a passer defender. Okay, we'll use Henderson. We need more of a runner. We'll use Keita, but Keita isn't very ball secure. Like, they do need a guy who combines those. Now, if that's Tchouameni, I'm not necessarily sure. Like, he's definitely got the skill set that you think this is a sensible pickup regardless. But I actually do think they need to turn over the midfield. I think this is definitely a central midfielder is extremely needed at Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think this summer. But sneakily, we always used to talk about City's insane depth. Liverpool are now deeper than them. Like, Liverpool are just deeper than them, in my opinion. Like, City have way more issues around depth than Liverpool do. They've really, really done a great job adding a centre-back here, adding a left-back there. And now they look really, really solid across the board. So I think that this would be a real statement of intent from them.
I don't want to poo-poo the move, but then you look at the contract situations next summer. Obviously, Mo Salah's not signed a contract yet. Firmino's not signed a contract extension. Sadio Mane's not. So I think signing someone like Adeyemi for me would be a little bit more.
Do you think they need another forward though?
I know with Fabio Carvalho arriving, I mean, Harvey Elliott can play in the midfield 3 as well. You look at the midfield next season, what is it realistically going to be? Fabinho, Thiago, Hendo, and maybe Elliott as well, sharing the minutes. If Keita, if he can come. So,
Curtis Jones.
Except Elliott now can't get off the bench.
Do they try and Curtis Jones?
But I think that's because they're in such a crunch time of the season where they cannot afford to give.
But he started the year as basically like a starter. Like, it looked like that was like the next progression of Liverpool.
But he's trying to bet him in, isn't he?
Then Diaz arrives, and it may still. My guess is that it's still carrying a physical issue, from that time out. But it also might be that plans have changed because Diaz has arrived and he's just a lot better than you expected him to be immediately.
He's been on fire. But you see, you've got Diaz, obviously Jota's probably going to assume that centre forward role. I think they are not weaker on the right-hand side, because if Mo Salah signs a new deal, that's fine, but he is not holding them to ransom, but they are having a standoff, aren't they? So if they started to sound out someone like Adeyemi, I don't know, I think it would be sensible, even if it was just to force Salah's hand a little bit. I mean,
I think it's got to be a centre mid. I think it has to be a centre mid.
Well, that has to be priority one. But I mean, like, I understand, like, they might want to go for a forward if they want, but I do think Fabio Carvalho, like,
and surely
he's
Salah
going to
does.
accept that reserve role. That's the issue.
Salah
like,
signs the new deal as well, right?
At least somebody does.
in the wake of a Champions League victory, I imagine he might. But then, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if Tchouameni goes there, though, it's just...
It doesn't feel very FSG. Like, what I'm saying is this makes perfect sense. Obviously, we love the player. The money's absolutely fine. But spending £70 million on a central midfielder at this point, when they can get, I don't know, someone like Conrad Lima, whose contract is up in 18 months, maybe for a third of the price, and he puts up very similar numbers. That, to me, feels more Liverpool. Like, I just haven't fully wrapped my head around them spending another £70 million on a midfielder.
Should get Pogba.
Imagine.
Woof.
Pogba under Klopp.
He'd be a really, really interesting fit.
No.
Doesn't do the work, mate.
He'd be a really interesting fit.
He doesn't sprint after the ball.
Doesn't matter.
It
like,
does.
Firstly, he could work hard enough. He doesn't have to work like insanely hard. But more importantly, like, you've got that. He would be a really complementary skill set for Thiago.
What about Pogba to City?
That makes less sense, but you could see it happening.
Right.
Yeah.
In a midfield, yeah. That three, because they've already got, I suppose it kind of upsets the balance a little bit, doesn't it? That's why I just think, going back to my shout of Lima for Liverpool, like, has become a goal threat this season. Obviously, he's come back from injury.
But it was only a break. It was a break, let's not forget. It's not like it was a ligament or anything like that. It was a broken ankle, wasn't it?
Insane pressing numbers, like, is good at ferrying the ball. Like, he feels Liverpool-y to me, but...
Well, let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. Let us know, if you're a Liverpool fan, in the comments below who you want to sign in the summer. Chelsea then, prediction, centre-back. Surely. Rudiger's...
Well, if they're allowed to sign players, right?
Yeah, well, let's pretend they are and that takeover goes
mid
through.
is just as important.
But if they've got no Rudiger...
No, I agree.
No Christensen...
I agree, but like, I think it's equal importance with centre-mid. Centre-mid is a bad situation for them.
I just think that at the moment, with a centre-back roster potentially starting next summer of... Aspi,
Chalobah,
Sarr, Chalobah and Silva.
Levi Colwell.
Yeah, Levi Colwell, will be coming back, but will still be 19, right? Like, obviously, having a great season at Huddersfield and a rare left-footed central defensive option never goes amiss. They are hard to find left-footed centre-backs, but they cannot go into the next season with that central defensive roster, whereas I feel like you can somehow scrape by with Gallagher coming back on loan. You've still got Kovacic, Kante is in the decline clearly, but Jorginho potentially still there, although I think he will only have 1 year left on his deal come the summer.
He and Kante both have a year left on their deal.
Yeah, whereas this summer they've actually got massive defensive problems. Like, Rudiger and Christensen going is huge holes, and I know that recently we've seen Thomas Tuchel saying, well, I quite like Reece James as a centre-back. I just feel like it wastes so much of his best part of his game.
That just wouldn't happen
in that final
with Aspi
third.
signing that 1 year contract extension.
Well, no, but we've seen it, haven't we, recently? We've seen Reece James playing as a right centre-back and Aspi playing as a right wing-back.
Yeah, which is such a
How
weird
long can Aspi
one.
keep that up for? Yeah.
I know, but what
They've kind of
I don't
changed
really
mid-game as well,
understand the thinking necessarily there. I think you lose so much of Reece James' best work in the final third, his crossing ability, his ability to get shots away and around the box.
And it's like Maatsen comes back or something, and you're like, oh, he's great. That's kind of what they need to happen. They're in the situation
as well, right?
They're in the situation at the moment where they're kind of hoping that, like, one of their loanee fullbacks or something will come back and be incredible. But I really don't know what they're going to be able to do, because this deal is like still grinding on. I still think it will get sorted, because I think everyone's quite resistant to the idea of it of Chelsea basically failing.
Yeah.
Which is annoying, because it'd be really funny. But I don't know, like, it's a bit worrying.
Well, at the moment, the sale has
does it get done?
held up by the fact that Roman Abramovich now kind of wants to be remunerated for his £1.6 billion.
But they put out the statement.
He says he doesn't.
Yeah,
but
they put out the statement yesterday saying that.
But it does definitely seem like
not necessarily he put out the statement. His parties put out the statement. Allegedly, his parties basically on the Chelsea website saying that we don't want the 1.6 billion. That's fake news, kind of thing.
But that's kind of bull.
But they want £500 to go to a charity. Right,
it's all very complex.
And he was also trying to price it into the initial deal. Like, they were trying to put it into the initial deal, like saying, I don't want that money paid back, but I am going to mark up the price of the club by, like, exactly the amount that the club owes.
It's all very complex, but it seems like it's going to be Todd Burley, doesn't it? About 4 billion with including $1 billion going into the stadium. So like 2.5 to 3 billion, and then $1 billion going into the stadium to try and sort that nightmare out.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of money.
Jim Ratcliffe's bid knocked back, and that was 4.5 billion.
Yeah,
so it looks like any deal is going to be around 4 bill, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it will probably get done somehow by crook or by hook. It's like, like you said, the government just aren't going to let a cultural institution like Chelsea fall. So let's say it does happen, and let's say a centre-back is. I know that you like a central midfielder as well, and that'll definitely be on the agenda. But what do we think about the persistent Jules Koundé links?
Sure. Great. Good on the ball.
Plays on the right side of the back
huge.
three as well, though, doesn't he? Play on the right side of the back three.
I know a lot of people have issues with his height as well.
Was he 5'11", 5'10"?
Yeah, he's not a big guy, which is not necessarily the most important thing, especially in a back three. But I don't know. Yeah, sure. I like him. I don't know.
Sevilla's defence has been tight this season.
It's like, whatever. I don't know. I just look at Chelsea and I think this side is much closer to... If Conte stays at Spurs and Ten Hag has a good summer at Man United, I think that Chelsea are a lot closer to Arsenal, Spurs, and United than they are to Liverpool and Man City
at this stage. That's the squad aging and Lukaku being a ginormous problem this summer. I think it definitely drags them down, like closer towards the top four contention.
It's absolutely causing chaos. I think the highly desirable centre backs on the market right now are Koundé, aren't they, and Pau Torres. And they've been linked with Pau Torres a little bit of late, but he feels like, he's been a perennial Manchester United target. He's been.
I really do think he's good on the ball, but the defensive structure which Unai Emery operates with is like, we are not going up the pitch. We're sitting like...
That goes for Koundé as well, though.
Yeah.
Like, Sevilla are an extremely conservative team.
Villarreal, exactly the same. Villarreal, when you watch them, you're like, wow, like they are just dogs. Like they're just going to sit in. Like, I'm sure Pau Torres has the elements because he obviously plays Spain, doesn't he, in a slightly different system under Luis Enrique. But when you watch them for Villarreal, you're like, you're not going to be able to play like this at a top level Premier League side. You've got to be higher up the pitch. You're not going to be able to have three defensive midfielders sat in front of you just kicking people.
The Chelsea defence, playing in a back three and shielded by Jorginho and Kante, you could level that criticism at some of them guys as well. They're well protected, aren't they?
And maybe that's an element that plays into Pau Torres' favour going to Chelsea. But, I'm
hoping they'll be.
He disproves me though. He might
pursuing a ball-playing centre-half either. That is his outstanding quality, isn't it? Because Thiago Silva has signed on for another year, and that is very much his function in the team. So it does maybe appear that Koundé would be their preference.
It just remains to be seen as well, like what's available by the time they get all this shit sorted out. Like there are guys disappearing off the market. We talked about Dortmund before, but Dortmund have got Insula, they've got Schlotterbeck. Like these are names disappearing, and it means that if this drags on a little while other clubs are wrapping up business, then Chelsea are going to end up in a position where they're like, we've got to spend 60, 70 on Koundé because that is what is left to us.
I think Gvardiol will be a good option for Chelsea as well.
I think he'd be a good option for
as a left-footed centre-back, obviously to play on the left-hand side of the back three, because it looks like it's going to be Reece James potentially playing as a right centre-back if we believe Thomas Tuchel, then Thiago Silva as the centre-half in the middle, and then they've obviously had Rudiger there this season, who isn't left-footed, but is just this absolute sort of physical beast, able to progress the ball really well. I think a player like Gvardiol, who can also distribute very well off his left foot, some of his underlying numbers are just absolutely astronomical.
Well, we did our best youngsters who were going to kill it next season, didn't we, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was pretty much the jewel in the crown.
I think he's an asset that is kind of being slept on at the moment, and a club like Chelsea might be interested in. But centre-back, any centre-mid options you want to raise before we move on to another league?
Well, Chris mentioned it before. Tchouameni would make an awful lot of sense for them as a long-term Conte replacement, who also gives them some of the passing that they'll lose with Jorginho. I guess there are no other obvious names. Obviously, there are names on the market like Grilic. He's going to be going for free. Lima again.
Rice.
If you want a progressive passer, Fabian Ruiz looks like he could be available with a year left on his contract. There's plenty of stuff around.
Rice, they are heavily linked with, but I can't see it being.
And Rice is going to be he's just going to cost twice his value.
Yeah.
He's not worth 100 million. He's not worth 150 million. And I think he's a great player. In fact, I think he looks like one of the best young midfielders in the world at the moment. But I don't think a central midfielder is ever really worth 100 million.
And when I see someone like Manchester United pursuing Declan Rice as a But as a one solution fits all sort of scenario, like you tried that with Maguire. There are parallels here. Don't overpay for an Englishman and hope that he's going to solve multiple problems.
There's no way United sign 5 players, including £150 million in the mid.
Yeah.
It's not physically possible. I'm afraid, Manchester United fans. Let's go to the next side then. Let's move outside the Premier League. We're just doing the top 3 sides from the top 5 divisions. We'll have to speed up a little bit, but Real Madrid, La Liga winners.
They need like 6 positions.
I know Pat hates this squad. Pat hates this.
It's an awful squad. It's an awful squad. And I mean, like, it really can't be overstated.
It's in the Champions League final and it's won La Liga. I can.
It really can't be overstated. The degree to which they don't deserve to be in the Champions League final. Even more so than the side that like scored 2 offside goals and had a bullshit red card against Ancelotti's Bayern a few years ago. I mean, they have been worse than pretty much every team they've played in the knockout stages of the Champions League. And that doesn't mean that they don't deserve credit for it. Like I think Vinicius and Benzema and Courtois as well definitely do.
Camavinga.
But I look at their defense. I think I can't really stand Eder Militao. Their midfield, Toni Kroos was appalling in both legs against Manchester City. Appalling. Truly, almost he would have been the worst player on the pitch if it weren't for Mahrez in that second leg. Yeah, so I do think they need a central midfielder to be sure. Bringing on Ceballos in a Champions League semi-final is not tremendous for them.
No, but it did work.
They put all their eggs in the Mbappe basket, haven't they? And it'll be hilarious if they don't get it.
It will.
But even if they don't get him, I think they're in good shape to then rebuild the squad because people like Isco, Bale, Modric, their contracts are up at the end of the season, right? And that alone...
Modric is getting re-up.
Yeah, probably.
Sure.
But they don't have any plan to replace Modric, do they?
Those 3 players, that's about £66 million in wages they're going to save if Modric does go. 29 players this season have got league minutes in that Real Madrid squad. They've got...
It's bloated, isn't it?
Yeah, it is bloated. And they've got assets they can sell, they can flip to generate funds for really solid targets that we've already discussed.
And I know that you hate the squad, but I do think there is an element of... There are some exciting young players in there. Like Camavinga in the Champions League was absolutely exceptional.
No one disagrees with that, but they also have players like Rodrigo. It goes from we're going to sell him to then he comes on, scores a couple of goals in the Champions League. They're like, maybe we should change our plan.
He's treading the Vinicius.
Is the plan not for Rodrigo to be slightly more of a squad player when Mbappe arrives to facilitate a front three of Benzema?
Who knows what the plan is? Because I think the plan with Ancelotti this season is Jesus Christ, we need somebody who can fit together this horrible nightmare of a squad into something that works. And Ancelotti is one of the best in the world at doing that. But also, you talk about assets they can flip for money, but a load of them, they've tried to do that a bunch of times and failed. They've never managed to... Vallejo came on the other day. They've been trying to sell him for years, haven't managed it.
It's like an extra from Narcos. Big time.
He was great. That's crazy.
Mariano Diaz, guys like this, just hang around there forever, and they really struggle to move them.
And they've made some poor selling decisions in recent years. Hakimi, Martin Ødegaard, obvious poor errors.
But then if they win the league and Champions League, I
agree,
they can still justify some of the decisions they've made along the way, can't they? I mean,
they can, but
objectively poor.
Well, except for the fact that you could argue that if they'd run this a little bit better, then they could have really made it impossible for Barcelona to catch them. And actually, if you look at the underlying numbers, Barcelona are already catching them. Yeah, that's worrying.
I mean, Xavi has we'll probably talk about that in just a second, but he has stabilised Barcelona, having its second best attack and second best defence by expected goals. So they're breathing down the necks.
For Madrid, the fact that they're bringing in Mbappe and Rudiger, I know we saw the reports yesterday of Mbappe potentially considering a new deal. It was kind of poo-pooed by his family a little bit, wasn't it? But
£100 million signing clause.
Rudiger on a free transfer. I do think if they were to get a central midfielder a la Tchouameni, if Tchouameni was the guy they ended up going and spending the money, even though I'm a little bit unconvinced they'll want to spend that much money on him, that is an amazing summer. Mbappe, Tchouameni and Rudiger for a combined 70 million quid.
It's actually been... but it's...
Yeah. Plus,
100
million a week from Mbappe, 100 million sign-on bonus.
They actually haven't been linked with anyone barring Mbappe, and that's going back to your comment about or the
they have been linked to Tchouameni
and Reece James actually, but not in any meaningful.
In what world?
Not in any meaningful sort of way. They've been linked with Fran Garcia from Rayo Vallecano, a buyback for him for $5 million. I think the left back from Celta Vigo. His name escapes me. I'll get it in just a second.
Galan.
Javi Galan. But
he might go to Barca.
Yeah, no big names.
Well, Marcelo is leaving, isn't he? Right at the end of the season.
So
pretty bad time.
I don't know. So I think there's going to be money to spend.
The problem is you just look at them and you're like, it just feels all the time like the only players who are trusted at Real Madrid are the guys who've been there for like half a decade.
But they're slowly being eased out.
You hope so, but like people are like, oh, Camavinga, he's been great, but like he still doesn't play as much as you'd like him to play.
No, but
he played a lot more at another club.
It's his first season at Madrid.
Yeah, but he played a lot more at another club. Like same with Ferland Mendy. They've had Ferland Mendy for a while, but like with Ferland, they're kind of like, it feels like they're always looking for like something a little bit better. That's what frustrates me with Real Madrid. It's just the fact that like it's fine to have these guys around. It's fine to even rely on them in the big games, but relying on them every week is not a sign of real faith in them. It's a sign that you don't have faith in the transfers that you've made more recently, and that's frustrating because if they'd been more sensible over the last few years, they would have people like Kovacic still there. They would have people like Hakimi still there, and I do think that would be overall a better, stronger Real Madrid.
Although they are in Champions League final and won La Liga, so
sure, but I mean, winning La Liga this season was just like, somebody had to.
Yeah,
but we'll see about the Champions League. They could get absolutely pumped in the final.
They never say never with Madrid. Let's move on to Barca then, who had a real bright spell under Xavi, then had like a little bit of a dip back down to reality, and now people are kind of saying the squad looks a bit muddled, as does the summer thinking. I mean, the talk of Robert Lewandowski going to Barca, I mean...
And Marcus Alonso.
I understand, like... When Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang arrived, I remember we had a very similar discussion. Like, yeah, he's going to score goals for sure, but what is the long-term strategy of Barcelona, a club who are in financial meltdown and have had a really muddled sort of idea of transfers over the last few years? Aubameyang has like scored goals, been a fine signing, but still fits into that for me. Lewandowski, if he came alongside Aubameyang, I'm totally confused. I'm totally confused. Like, where on earth does that? What's going on there?
And surely Xavi, I mean, I think Aubameyang's going pretty much at a goal or assist every game at the moment. Surely he backs him, or the way he sets up his side to kind of sustain that.
How does the system play? How do they play the system?
To a 0.7 level next season, thus making the need to give Lewandowski massive wages to come to the club, grossly reduced.
He likes these wide players, doesn't he? Like,
well, he's spinning off Adama Traore, isn't he?
That's fine, and he's only on loan, of course, isn't he? So like that deal can be like
one white player
dogged off because Ousmane Dembele looks like he's going to end up staying, right? So with Ousmane Dembele there, Ferran Torres there, Aubameyang there, Ansu Fati there, where does Lewandowski fit? Does he play front two of Aubameyang and Lewandowski? Like,
I just don't see this one happening.
All right, what about Rafinha then? Because also heavily linked, and Leeds, in my We Need to Talk predictions, I did on Friday, go and watch that if you want, I actually think they're going to go down, Leeds. Would you take Rafinha if you're at Barcelona?
They've got the greatest odds of going down at the moment, haven't they? Like,
tough run.
But I mean, so did Everton. Everton have a really tough run too, and they're really bad. I don't know. I think that I would, of course you'd take him, but I wouldn't prioritise him. Like, I don't really worry about their attack. They've got some guys there. Ferran Torres has put up great numbers since being there. As we said, Aubameyang's been good. Ansu Fati, like we've talked about these guys again and again and again. To me, I'd probably prioritise some more depth in central midfield. Like getting a
even more alongside
back.
Kessie. They've got their Kessia's coming in.
I still think they're pretty thin. Like Busquets is doing a lot this season, a lot, and we're still hearing links to like Frankie De Jong going. I don't know. I just think that they're pretty thin in the middle of the park. They don't really trust guys like Ricky Puig. I think that the time is right to upgrade that area.
Christensen as well looks like it's going to happen, doesn't it? Christensen. Can we just talk Marcos Alonso just 30 seconds? Because I've seen Fabrizio Romano saying for the last week that this is a deal that's going to happen, that he wants out of Chelsea, Barcelona, desperate to bring him in.
Well, he's got
What's going on with the Barcelona thinking?
He's got a year left of his contract after this, isn't he? So I don't think Chelsea don't need to sell him imminently. Obviously, they want to recoup a fee for him this summer if possible, but let's go back to Chelsea can't sell players yet. So this is just a bull scenario, isn't it?
It's the least joined up thinking though, isn't it? Like Lever, Marcos Alonso, and then it's like Franck Kessié, and then it's like Christensen.
But we knew this was coming after running up 1.5 bills worth of debt. They're just going to have to do a lot of ducking and weaving, and maybe can't afford for all of their transfers to make sense. I mean, that's giving them maybe the bandwidth they don't deserve, but they're just ambling around looking for first team ready players, aren't they?
But then that makes life harder in the long run. It's one of those things where it's actually better to be not as competitive as you want to be in the short term, so that you could, because otherwise 2 or 3 years time, Xavi's gonna have made a rod for his own back and have to try and find a way to create a coherent squad out of guys who are now like 31 or something, and they're on really lucrative long-term contracts.
Their ego probably won't permit that, will it?
It's a nightmare.
Sevilla? Any potential signings for Sevilla?
I think
forward, probably. Forward.
I don't think they take up the option on Anthony Martial.
If they sell Diego Carlos to Newcastle and they sell Koundé to Chelsea, let's say, they're going to have capital to reinvest. But I also think for a team like Sevilla, the free transfers that you mentioned or started to mention at the top of the show, a lot of those could be really interesting additions to their attack, which has struggled this season. I think it's Rafa Mir, who's their leading goal scorer at the moment. But they
Martial
could go after.
hasn't worked.
No, Martial hasn't worked. But Lingard wants to go and play in La Liga. Why not go for him? Like they could go for people like Grealish, that's Pat has mentioned before, to replace outgoing players like Diego Carlos. Jason Denayer is going on a free from Lyon. He's always been a pretty sound central defender. Like I think they could do some good surgery for a low price.
All right, let's move on to Germany then. Bayern Munich. I mean, there seems like there's two obvious predictions here, both coming out of Ajax. Right, Mazraoui seems very likely to join. But do we think that's an upgrade on Benjamin Pavard? Probably just a little bit.
It's a different kind of fullback.
Yeah.
I mean, it just means that they're a bit more versatile, and Pavard can obviously cover centre back as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's a sensible move. But the Gravenberch one is
That's
the key
exciting,
one,
isn't it?
right? Like they need central midfield reinforcements.
100%.
They've needed this for a while, and actually, Bayern looked like one of the best sides in Europe until kind of just after January, and then they got a lot more porous, and they've struggled down the stretch. You know, like Dortmund got a lot closer than we
Do you
expected.
think that's the
them to
work
be.
rate Nagelmann's trying to put them through, and they're just not fit enough to do it at the moment in that midfield area? Like Corentin Tolisso is picking up minutes and stuff, and no offense to Corentin Tolisso, but like it feels like his legs have just never really recovered from those persistent injuries, have they? So if that's an upgrade for me. Like Tolisso to leave and Gravenberch to come in at 20 million euros.
Even if he's just fit, it's an upgrade, yeah. But I mean, it's also down to what Nagelsmann wants to do. Like Nagelsmann has done some serious, like, Pep wet dream this season. You know, like playing wingers as wing backs and doing all that kind of, like, basically trying to cram as many forwards as possible onto the pitch. They need some guys who are reliable defensive players in the centre of the park, and at the moment it's Kimmich plus somebody else.
It's interesting to see where it'll fit though, Gravenberch, because I've played kind of majority of the time 4-2-3-1. I know he does. Formation means very little to Nagelsmann. It's very fluid in the game. But what does that mean for, like, Gravenberch is kind of a more attack-minded central midfielder, isn't he? Rather than being like one of those.
He's not an out-and-out defensive.
Yeah, one of those dual sixes. So if he plays in. If he's like the long-term solution to Thomas Muller, who's got 17 assists this season,
not Musiala,
where does that leave Musiala?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where these pieces land.
Yeah, absolutely. Dortmund then, Adeyemi.
They've already done all their good business, haven't they?
Yeah. Did Schlotterbeck get confirmed?
Obviously, they've got to replace Haaland, but Schlotterbeck, Nicolas Süle. They could probably upgrade the left-back area. Schultz has got a lot of minutes. Obviously, Raf Guerreiro still plays there.
But Adeyemi's going to come in, isn't he, as the sort of replacement for Haaland?
If they get Adeyemi plus they've got Schlotterbeck and Süle, that's already a really good summer. They might want another central midfielder as well, because Witzel's going, and to be honest, it's about time. It's pretty past it. Been really bad this season. Yeah, I think they need another central midfielder in there, but like they'll basically be fine. I mean, I think they're doing good business right now, and Dortmund still, they've managed to resuscitate that reputation as this is where you go before you go to a super club. That's great for them.
Yeah. If Liverpool don't go for Konrad Laimer makes sense from a midfield perspective. Like, I think they've been linked with Raum at left back as well, who's excelled at Hoffenheim this season. Like, that would be another good move and very, very on brand for Dortmund.
And when Süle arrive?
This
summer.
I think they probably need, weird as it sounds, another centre back, because Zagadou his fitness is shot to bits. I think Akanji's refused to sign a new deal because
it's very likely he's leaving this summer.
He wants Premier League football, so that might leave them with just that new pairing. Maybe obviously Mats Hummels as well has actually been probably their best centre half this season. But if they want to play three at the back, which Marco Rosa's sort of toyed with, maybe another transfer in the form of, like, I was kind of thinking the way William Saliba might be pretty cool for them, but Arsenal might demand an awful lot of money for him or want him back. So
you never know, though. You never know. He's not got loads left on his contract, William Saliba, at this stage, has he?
I think
2
years.
He
might have a year, 2 years, I think.
Leverkusen, very quickly. Any shouts?
I saw them linked with who's the PSG youngster, Xavi Simons, and again very on brand for Leverkusen, nicking a top youngster from PSG's academy. Like, they've fared pretty well recently, haven't they? Diaby's absolutely crushed it for them. after treading that same path. So that makes sense. I like to see Leverkusen do those sort of deals rather than shelling out. Don't know about you boys.
Yeah, I think I should move on to Italy, should we? 'Cause this is the tightest title race outside the Premier League, really, isn't it?
This is now the second best league in Europe right now.
Competitively.
No, but La Liga's terrible right now, right? Like, nobody in La Liga's good. Nobody's good in Liga.
But Real Madrid would win Serie A.
I don't know if they would. I really don't know if they would.
Interesting.
It's a much deeper league, and it requires a bit more flexibility, I think.
Okay, but either way, it's a great watch at the moment, isn't it, Serie A? So, at the moment, as we film in this, Milan leading, but just. Where do we think Milan need to upgrade? Do we like those Divock Origi links?
Nice. Aim higher.
It feels regressive, doesn't it? It feels like something that they would have done.
I agree.
3 or 4 years ago. We thought they were kind of past that a little bit. But if they get him on a free and he's someone that they think they can flip for 10, 15 mil, maybe, like, if that's their justification. But I like the Belotti rumours. Belotti on a free.
Yeah.
Well, he's an upgrade on,
and it's free,
as good as Giroud and Zlatan have been. He's an upgrade on those players,
and he's much more in that mould.
Yeah,
you know, if they want to have those different, because they've got Leao as the kind of like more. He can obviously play wide as well, but Leao is their mobile, like, running striker. Yeah. If they still want a big presence, Belotti makes sense, but
hard worker as well.
But how much longer can Giroud go on?
That's definitely what they need.
Mind you, it's Italy. Probably 5 years.
Attack is clearly the area they need.
Jesse Lingard.
No.
Inter Milan.
He'd be fine. He'd be fine. You maybe take him, but his wages, he's not worth what you pay.
Inter Milan's going to be Dybala, isn't it?
Seems that way.
Yeah.
I just don't see a way they keep Lautaro Martinez this summer. I think Lautaro's got to go.
I don't know. Does he want to go?
I think Lautaro Martinez will want to go this summer.
It doesn't seem like he's ever really agitated.
I think he'll have quite a lot of suitors at like 50, 60 million quid.
Unless, like, Newcastle pull a madness. But, like, he's always been linked with Barcelona, hasn't he? And that's obviously off the cards with them having zero money and also wanted to offer Lewandowski £500 a week.
Arsenal will be fairly interested in Lautaro Martinez.
Well,
if Gabby Jesus can't happen.
Arsenal supposedly put out feelers on Martinez as well as Osimhen, as well as, you know, pretty much every striker who's available. Spurs have previously been interested in Martinez.
United
and
need a striker.
Yeah, there are a few guys.
Lacazette feels very one of the Milans if he doesn't sign a new contract at Arsenal.
And he'd be fine if you've got a lot of movement around him. Like, you could imagine at Milan with Leao playing on one side, Brahim Diaz, you know, you could kind of see how that works. But he doesn't replace that. He's actually a pretty good physical presence, but he's not going to replace the physical presence of Ibrahimovic and Giroud.
Who also combine that with being very efficient in front of goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see Lautaro Martinez leaving.
Is that how we feel about Giroud?
Efficient in front of goal.
Yeah.
It's
a take.
He's been
in Milan.
He's been good for them this season. Yeah,
but I wouldn't.
In a limited amount of minutes.
I certainly wouldn't describe him as efficient, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Napoli.
An interesting one this, because I don't really know an awful lot about their squad.
It's going to depend if they can keep hold of Osimhen, right? If they can keep hold of Osimhen, then there's not a lot of surgery necessarily needs to be done up front. But if they lose Osimhen to some ridiculous degree to PSG or something, then they're going to have to sign a striker.
Insigne's going to the MLS as well, and obviously Dries Mertens is getting older. And they're two players that, despite their being over 30, are still racking up a fair amount of minutes. So they are going to need to maybe replace them in attack this season. Politano's played well, right? If memory serves me correctly, but I like Zielinski's come of age in the last sort of 18 months. Fabian Ruiz, they should probably focus on tying him down to a new deal because he's been very good for them. The tall James Maddison, that's pretty much what he is. It was a shame that they dropped off in the title challenge, but hey.
So we'll leave that until Osimhen decides what he's going to do with his future. Ligue 1 then, let's fly through these, because PSG, I'm just going to say Pogba.
Yeah, Pogba.
It's just going to be Pogba, isn't it? It's the most obvious.
They shouldn't do it, but they will do it.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I mean, can they afford another passenger in their team?
No.
Defensively, because that is what Pogba is, a defensive passenger. And they've already got 3 passengers who refuse to chase the ball up front. Add Pogba in there. The 2 other defensive midfielders, I feel sorry for.
That screams out of the Champions League at the last 16 stage, like, straight away.
I mean, poor old like Marco Verratti and Gini Wijnaldum or whoever.
Danilo.
Gini Wijnaldum's been
appalling.
Shocking.
Yeah, but who are the 2 poor souls?
Danilo Pereira and Herrera.
Well, Tchouameni should be their signing, right? They should do what they did before. They should go around to all the other clubs in France and take all their best players.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what they should do, and get some hard-working guys in. And actually, if Mbappe left, okay, it would suck. It would suck in lots of ways, but it would make the balance of the side a lot easier, because you could just play kind of Neymar and Messi.
Yeah,
and
more workhorses.
everybody else just defends.
Yeah, Pogba, I think it's just a nailed on to PSG, but it's just I'm not convinced about it at all. Marseille. Should we just say make Guendouzi permanent? That's going to happen, isn't it? I think that's done
pretty much.
I think it's pretty much done and agreed.
They could probably upgrade the front line a little bit, and they're going to need a defender to replace Saliba. I don't think there's no way they keep Saliba. I don't think Arsenal will sell him, but if Arsenal sell him, they're not going to sell him to Marseille.
Boubacar Kamara is going to be a big miss, isn't he?
That's
as well,
true.
Big miss,
huge miss. So maybe looking at CDMs as well.
Yeah.
Have we got any? Is there any CDMs going on free transfers?
Well, we talked about Grealish before.
Yeah. Well capable
I
of
think
playing
has
there.
Grealish agreed to join someone though? Maybe
so.
I've misread that.
But Marseille at the moment are also potentially looking at a transfer ban because of illegal dealings with that player who went to Watford and then signed for Watford and then signed for them the next day. So they may not be able to sign anyone. But yeah, the 10 million for Guendouzi is great, isn't it?
Or a bit more creativity, they could go and get like Benjamin Bourigeaud or whatever from Rennes.
Never heard of it, but
Rennes are the 6th highest scoring club in Europe this season. Like they're behind. It's like Bayern, Liverpool, City, PSG, somebody else, and then it's them.
Yeah, they're third now.
Like they will not stop scoring. And they've only conceded like 36 and 35 as well under Bruno Genesio now. The attack's been really, really good, and Bourigeaud is like their kind of creative hub. He's got the most expected assists in Europe. He's creating 3.5 chances a game. Big progressive passing numbers. Good presser as well. Can play in midfield. Can play in the front line. He'd be an interesting guy for them in that system where their midfielders, a lot of them do kind of float from the midfield to the line behind the striker. That would be quite interesting.
There we go. All right. Any suggestions for Rennes then? Because they are third, or should we just?
Yeah.
They probably do need another forward. I mean, Laborde has had a good season as well. 20 goals and assists in 29 games. Martin Terrier has been great for them. He's got 21 goals. I think he's joined 8th top scorer in Europe with Erling Haaland. So they've got a lot out of their attackers, but beyond those 3 guys, there's not a whole lot there. So they could do with adding some more around the squad.
All right, there we go. So those were our predictions or transfers that we think should be made and will be made. It's kind of a bit of a mess, wasn't it? But we kind of got there in the end.
Yeah, shock.
We
didn't actually stick to the
Vibes
initial
mess.
concept.
Yeah.
Who cares?
But who cares? Let us know what you think your club should sign in the summer. Obviously, prediction and who they actually will sign. Anything you want to plug?
Sure. Go and check out We Need to Talk from
relegation
Friday.
Predictions.
We've also got a couple of great explains coming out in the form of, we've got the Haaland one. We've got Steve Cooper resurrecting Nottingham Forest.
Yes, one Cooper
coming out. So keep your eyes peeled for them.
Pat?
Same things. I wrote both of those. So,
I VO'd both of them.
Yeah. There we go. Big Steve Cooper. What a legend. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later.